So this is kind of a new take on SEO. It's a new way to implement SEO using a new tool that was released a few years ago, and that not enough people know about it. So first of all, just a bit about myself. I'm Stéphane Corlosquet, core on Drupal.org. I've been with Drupal for 8 years. I work at Acquia, software engineer at Acquia. I live in Boston, so if I wasn't for Acquia, I wouldn't be here. So I'm very happy to be visiting Asheville and meeting all of you. We are also hiring, so if you're interested, come and see me. I maintain the RDF module in Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. I'm part of the Drupal security team. I also have a few modules in Contrib. I'm a member or a former member of the RDFA working group at W3C. So RDFA is the format we use in Drupal core for implementing what I'm going to talk about today. I also wrote a couple of chapters for the definitive guide to Drupal 7. So what is SEO? Generally, SEO stands for search engine optimization. But I like to, when I in the context of my session, I like to rebrand it a little bit and closer to something like search experience optimization. It's about improving the user experience and not gaming the system as much. Simply doing what's right for your site and for the search engines, and then search engines will just do their job. So you don't have to try to game the system. So I want to take a step back from SEO a little bit and explain a new approach that Google is using when it comes to crawling the web and implementing search and giving features to the users. So they use something called knowledge graph. They built that over the last few years. They've been kind of secretive about it at the beginning, but now they're slowly opening up and explaining how it works behind the scenes. So the knowledge graph is essentially Google's knowledge base. And they use that to be able to answer questions from all of us when we go just do a regular search on Google or use any Google product like Google Now or Gmail. It's all kind of, all the products are kind of using the same platform or are going to if they're not yet using this knowledge base. So it helps user to find information quickly and efficiently. This particular knowledge base knows a lot about the world information. The goal of Google is to gather as much information as possible about the world, all the facts and all the people, places, celebrities, events, this Google News. All of those products are kind of built from all this information. And one of the big shifts that Google has made over the last few years is to move away from just considering web pages and also queries that you ask Google. They are no longer just strings, but each word or each group of words is now mapped to an entity or things. So it's moving from strings to things, and to see each word for what it means, not just for a bunch of characters. And Hummingbird is kind of like that's the name of their algorithm now that they use to process the queries and also to understand the web pages that they crawl on the web. So this is how it works. It gathers information from various entities about the world, and it has all the characteristics of this information. And that information comes from the web pages that we publish with Drupal or from Wikipedia, from whichever site talks about a particular entity. And then once they've done that, they can also link entities together, show the relations between each of them. And as usual, they also have various properties about each of those. So they have people and how they are linked to places around the world. And then all of this forms a big graph of knowledge. And when you send a query to Google, whether it's through Google, just a regular search, or Google Now, if you ask a question, it's always querying that same graph. And this is a massive graph, but Google has the infrastructure to process that, store it, process it, and query it as needed. So, like I said, it's very, very large. It's over 570 million real-world objects from the world. So, like Asheville is one entity, the US is another entity, and every celebrity is also in there. Typically, all Wikipedia pages at least have are stored in Google Graph. And Google has been working on this for a long time, since at least 2010, when they acquired Freebase, which was a startup at the time that was gathering facts about the world. And that was exactly what Google wanted to do, so they acquired it. So they have 39 million topics, more than 2 billion now facts and relationships about all the entities in the world. So. And I have 2 links at the bottom here. I'll put the slides online. You can watch those videos. So, just want to do a quick demo now. Just going to move the mic to make sure you can hear.
What did you say Freebase is?
Freebase is, it was a startup. It started as a startup back in 2008, I believe. It was acquired by Google in 2010. It's still actually available today. It's the public-facing portion of Google Knowledge, and anyone can use it actually to query it via an API. But Google has much more knowledge. It's just the tip of the iceberg that all of us can see, but there's more. There's much more. So I just wanted to show you another demo using search by voice. How old was Steve Jobs when he died?
Steve Jobs died at the age of 56.
Okay. Who are Barack Obama's parents?
Barack Obama's parents are Ann Dunham and Barack Obama, Sr.
What movies are showing tonight? And it's going silent. So usually it says the movies.
Here are the movies playing near Asheville.
Okay. Well, so essentially this is just to show you how Google is able to take queries from any kind of medium, like whether it's voice or text, but then it goes through the same process of querying the graph. And because it knows about, it's able to understand your query, and then it's able to query that graph in like a fraction of a second, and it can pull all data for you, like all the movies in Nashville or facts about celebrities. So this is all public data. It can also pull data to help you out from your personal data. So for example,
Hey, can I ask a question? How did you get the microphone in your search bar? I don't have
it's
it online.
if you're using Chrome,
Yeah.
it should be there. At least on Mac it works that way.
It is.
It's built in Chrome. I didn't have to install anything. What's my calendar like for this afternoon? So here it's showing my calendar for this afternoon. I want to watch a session at 3 p.m. So normally it speaks, but sometimes it goes quiet. So this is just one way to interact with Google. And it doesn't matter, it's all going through the same knowledge graph. Another thing Google can do is live entity disambiguation. So if you start typing something in the Google search bar, if it's too ambiguous, Google can show you a few options when it comes to entities. So Rio is too ambiguous. So if you can narrow it down by what you really mean, just because, again, it's moving from strings to things. So you type a string, Google has to match it to a thing. And so it's asking you to be a bit more accurate here. So And you can also have direct answers. It's the same as what I just did. List and collections, that's what I did. So Google is able to, even if you don't say your location, it will kind of infer where you are based, and it will, like I didn't say Asheville when I asked the questions, where, what movies were showing tonight, but it knew that I was around Asheville. So it can also show an entity summary for whatever entity you're looking up. And there's also rich snippets. So these are the search results that are more built to be more attractive, so that if your site is built properly, Google find all those information on your site, such as the ratings for a recipe and the preparation time, the number of calories, and it can pull those information up directly in the search results, making your page more attractive and hopefully leading to more traffic to your site. The goal is to give as many pieces of relevant information on the search page directly, so that people don't have to click and check all 10 or 20 pages. Hopefully they know from looking at these results, they know what they're looking for, and they can go straight to your site. And other search engines are doing similar efforts, but it's just that Google is kind of ahead of the game here. So what about Drupal? So a couple of facts to begin with. There are a lot of Drupal sites out there, and if our goal is to share our data, and that's the reason why we build those sites to be on the web, we should think of how to help search engines to gather and understand the information from our site, so that hopefully it can surface our site to the right queries, the right people. So it's over 2 million sites, 2% of the web, and like a wide variety of content, government content, news, corporate media, recipes, commerce. As a human, you can kind of guess, but as a machine, it's hard to know where the title is and what's this blurb of text. Is it the bio of the author, or is that part of the main content, the main news content, or is that a comment? And that image on the side, is that related to the main news, or is that just a picture of a cat from a collection of pictures you have on the site? So this is the whole point of helping machines like search engines to know what your data is describing. So then we have a challenge. How do we make Drupal's data understandable by search engines? So I have a quick video to explain the problem.
You know what drives me crazy about words? They have a million different meanings. Like, check this out. Someone says, I love Boston. Now, they probably mean I love Boston, the big city in Massachusetts, but they could be referring to one of the 26 other Bostons that are scattered around the globe. But if it's during the playoffs, they're probably referring to the Celtics. Of course, you and I both hope they're talking about the Boston. You know. But I guess there's really no way of knowing. The problem is that the same word can mean so many different things. Because of that, when it comes to finding, linking, reconciling, or organizing multiple layers of information, words are not the best solution. The guys at grocery stores figured this out back in the 60s when they started putting barcodes on everything so that products with the same name wouldn't get confused. So how come on the web, so many sites still try to organize stuff with words? Say you're a product guy at a big music site, and you want to pull in feeds of lyrics and videos and photos from all of your data suppliers. But everyone uses different names for things, and a lot of the feeds don't even match up, so you've got to reconcile them and pull in updates and deal with merges and deletes and splits. It's a nightmare. Mommy. But what if there was a better...
So this is kind of the challenges that search engines are facing. And you can... Our goal with Drupal, at least the work that I'm trying to do, is to make it easier for search engines to not having to deal with these ambiguities when they come to your site. So to help with that, the Schema.org standard was created in 2011, 3 years ago. So you can think of it as a big dictionary of types and properties for describing your content. So Schema.org tells you how you can describe books, a person, how to describe events, recipes, So you have all those types on Schema.org. It's like a dictionary. And when you build your site, if you tell Drupal that your content type is like a Schema.org person or a Schema.org event, and that all those fields are from Schema.org, then when search engines come to your site, they have a much easier time to understand what your page is about. If you tell search engines straight off the bat that this page is about an event, and here is the starting date of the event, and location is there, then it's like very easy for Google to just understand that and store it. And then when it comes time to sending it back as a rich snippet, it can pull the right information for you. What's special about this standard is that it was created by Google, Yahoo, Bing, and Yandex. So it's a common and a great standard for all search engines to use, which wasn't the case before that. Before that, you had to implement some kind of markup for Google and then a different markup for Yahoo. And Bing, I'm sure, had its own markup as well. It also supports multiple formats, RDFA, macrodata, JSON-LD. This is just to accommodate preferences of developers. If some of them prefer to use JSON, or it's more appropriate to use JSON, they'll understand JSON as well. JSON-LD is just a semantic version of JSON. So this is what it looks like. This is one type from Schema.org. This is the type event. And again, like I said, it's like a dictionary. So you go to Schema.org to look up what are the properties of an event that typically search engines will pay attention to. So, for example, we have attendees. Right here, we have the duration, the end date, the location, the offers, if it's not a free event, starting date, etc. So these are particular names for the fields that you publish on your site using Drupal. The good thing about this as well is that it can help you to kind of know what fields are making sense for events. You might not, you might forget that you need to give a location for the event. So this is kind of like a cookbook in a way for building sites that are relevant to search engines and also to people, obviously. People visiting your site. So how does it work internally? Drupal has content types, for example, article and event, and each of those content types has a bunch of fields. And those fields typically, they're not the same for all content types. It matters which content type you're talking about. So if it's an article, you want to have a title, an author, and a published date. But for events, you want to have a name for the event, a date. And that's not the date the event was published at, it's the date that the event starts at. So it's a different meaning than the date of the article. And the location of the event as well. So you see that the fields depend a lot on what kind of content type you're building. So there's a module in Drupal 7 and also another one for Drupal 8 that lets you tell Drupal when you're looking at a content type what type it is, what Schema.org type it really is. So, for example, you have like you can see examples here like art gallery, article, department store, news article. It's kind of wide range of different types. So you set the type for your content type, and then for fields, you can also do that. Same idea. You just select your property from Schema.org, and so when you publish your data, then all the fields will get the right markup to tell search engines that this is equivalent to the Schema.org property. So from a content editor perspective, I know some of you are content editors or writers, so there's really no difference. So like I said, these settings this is during the site building only. So you set them once, you store them in features or configuration, and then you forget about them. You do it right the first time and you forget about them. That means that for content writers, there's no difference. They can do their work as usual. They just fill in the form for the title, the subhead, the body. They upload an image for news. Then there's related contents as entity references. And then you get your node. Visually, there's no difference here from a human's perspective. But for machines, however, there is a slight difference. And you can see this is an address field output with the schema.org mapping set up. So you have things like type of, schema postal address, properties, schema location. So every time you see a schema colon, it's like an indication that it's telling search engines that this particular string here, 25 corporate drive, maps to the schema street address from schema.org. And that Burlington, that's the address locality. So all of those schema strings are defined on schema.org. And this is not really something you have to worry about. It's built in the schema.org module. And you just set the mapping in your UI, and this gets added automatically in the HTML. So you can then, once you've done that, you want to make sure that your site is understandable by Google. So there's a tool called the Rich Snippet Testing Tool, offered by Google, where you can go paste your URL here, and it will tell you whether it understands data, and it can even show the date here and the location, and that's picked up right from the markup. So I've got some examples here. This is the preview of a recipe. So my recipe is here. It's just a Drupal. It's a test site that I have. It's right here, and when I ask Google to test the page, this is the preview that I get. It's got the duration of the recipe here, and then I also have an event. Again, the page is there, and this is the date of the event. This is the location. And if you look up here, location, I mean, Google was able to extract the location because it's right there, property schema location. And there's another one for person. So another example here. This is the affiliation. Sorry, this is the job title here, the affiliation there. And this is coming from right here. So same idea. I went in the administration UI when I was creating my content type, and I set those things, and now Google can pick them up. So we have new features in Drupal 8 core. So we still have schema. First of all, we have a better support for schema.org in Drupal 8 core. So we found a few bugs in Drupal 7 when it comes to adding markup in the HTML to support these features. So we fixed those in Drupal 8. We also have new fields right in core. The link field, the phone field, date, email, entity reference. So all of those are compatible with schema.org. So that means that when you build a site with Drupal 8 and you set the right mappings, Drupal will know what markup to output for all of those fields. And again, that's not something you have to worry about. It's built in. The only thing you have to worry about is just telling Drupal what mappings those fields should have. And I'll show you in a bit how to do that. So use cases. Recently, Google launched this new feature. It's a product for musical artists, where if you're an artist and you have a site and you want to promote your events, you can just use schema.org to annotate your events on your site. And if you do that, Google will show the events. When it displays the entity card on the right, it will also show the events here in the context of your location. So if there's an event coming up not too far from where you are, it will promote it at the top. And this is all possible because of Schema.org, how Google is able to understand your data, exactly what date your event is, what location. So again, this is the workflow. And for those of you who watch Dries' keynote at DrupalCon Austin, he used similar diagrams. So you start with an empty entity, a Schema.org entity, with all the fields that you've defined for an event, the name, the date, location, and an image. You create the content, so the type of his event, and then all those values are filled in the form in Drupal. You save it. The entity is published as HTML, and all of those fields are marked up properly. Search engines can understand them. They know this string is the date, and that's the location. There's no ambiguity. And then search engines or anyone consuming this data can brand it the way they want. They can make it look the way they want, the image on the left and the colors and all that. That's because the data is explicitly broken down, and they know what data is what. So they know they can put the location in bold and the date on the right. It's also very easily discoverable, so you have multiple events. Again, it's all about location and dates, and they can be customized. So another kind of customization they can do is translation. So if you go to google.fr or D or Google Swedish or Finnish or whatever, the date, for example, will be translated to your local language. And also, of course, there's also the whole multi-channel delivery, all the multi-device, no matter what resolution you're using. Again, that's having the data broken down into multiple pieces allows you to format it depending on the size and ratio of your screen. Imagine, like, in the worst case, if you had just an image. Everything is encoded in an image. It's like taking a screenshot of your site, and you give that to someone. They can't really do anything with it when it comes to, like, shuffling things around. So having the raw data allows you to change the way it looks depending on the format of your device. So that's really important. Another use case is Drupal Commerce. So if you have an e-commerce site, you have products there. This example here, I have created a test site with the camera, with a price, and you might have other information, like how many items do you have in stock, the reviews, the ratings that the product got. So how would you do this? How would you have, first of all, ratings here, how many reviews it got, the price, whether you have it in stock, and also on the right here, price comparison. Again, for Google to be able to do this, it needs the raw data. It cannot do this without having all of these bits of information separate and being able to display them differently. So the price is on the right here in the table. Here the price is like in the middle of a line here. So all of this information has to be broken down and understandable by search engines. So how do you do that? Drupal Commerce doesn't have any built-in way of publishing the data with Schema.org. So I wrote this module called Good Relations for Drupal Commerce. It's just a drop-in module. There's no configuration needed because it's very specialized for Drupal Commerce. So I knew what fields to target. So it's just a module, a simple way to improve your SEO on your commerce site. and it's pretty new. It was only published last year, and if you find bugs or anything, if it doesn't work, just file an issue, and I'll be happy to help. And so I was going to take questions, but before that, I want to show you something. So I want to show you. As of actually, was it this week? Yeah, Monday. So over the summer, I had a student for the Google Summer of Code program, and she was tasked with building a user interface for Drupal 8 to set up the schema.org mappings for content types. So she had a few features to implement, and she finished Monday of this week. And I want to show you the user interface that she built. So this is a Drupal 8 site, Drupal 8 Alpha 14. And she added this new button here. I don't need that. Okay. Is that big enough? Yeah? Okay, so there's a new button here. It says add schema.org content type. And by the way, just to make sure, there's no content type on this site. It's a naked site. There's nothing. So I go here and say I want to create an event content type. So I have event here, and these are all values from schema.org. Okay, so I have different kinds of events. Let's say education event. Okay, so I'm going to hit next. And what it just did is it went to schema.org and it asked schema.org, okay, for an event, educational event, what are the typical properties that you're looking for? And these are all the fields and all the properties that typical events might have. So like a list of attendees, maybe a description. For that, we'll take long text. So these, on the right here, these are the field types that you want to have created for this particular property from schema.org. So what else do we want? Image, and it actually knows, the module will try to select a field type that makes sense in Drupal. So for image, that's trivial enough. Location, I want location as well for my event. And what else do I want? Start date. Okay. So I picked a few properties and I hit save. And after a few seconds, what I get is a new content type called education event with the fields that I selected. Description, image, location, start date. Body is like a field that Drupal always adds by default, so I'm just going to delete it. I don't really need it here. I have a description field. And while we're here, I also want to show you another part of the user interface, which is the RDF mappings tab. So that's useful if you have, say, an existing site and you want to add schema.org to it. That's where you want to go. And so it will list all the fields and it will ask you what properties you want to use for that field. So once you've done that, you save that. But again, that RDF mappings, you don't have to go there if you're starting a brand new content type, because those were set already for you. All right, so next, I just have to go create a new content. So I'm going to create a new education content event. So Drupal Camp, say Drupal Camp Asheville. And a little bit blurb here. Location is Asheville. And date is 2014. Forget which day we are today, it doesn't matter. So 9 o'clock. Save. So again, that part is no different. It's just content editing. And again, once you've set the mappings, you can forget about them. You just go and create content. It's the same. So now I have my page. I'll take the URL, go to the testing tool on Google, paste my URL, hit preview, and what I see here is that if Google displayed that search result somewhere for a query or a search by anyone on Google, it would display it that way. And what's interesting is it would display the date and the location that I just entered. And it's it's just kind of seamless. So if I made a typo and say it's not 23rd, it's 24th, save that. If I reload here, so it says 23. If I reload, it just says 24 right here. And if I went to say the German site, it's not so different. Let's try the Swedish site. The date gets translated to your language. So it understands the date as a machine format, and then it can translate it to your language. So this is.
If you had a translated description, would it do Google Translate or would it do the translation from Drupal?
This is Google translating. What Google sees on my site. So Drupal shows Sun 08/24, but what the machine picks up is not the string. The machine picks up this right here, the date time value. And that's how it's able to translate that to the day of the week in your language, the day of the month, and then the month in your language. And that's the HTML5 date time attribute combined with the property schema start date here and the time element.
I was just thinking about like the description, where you might have a different verbiage for German versus.
Yeah. So that you'd have to build a site that's multi-language, first of all, and that's a good question actually. I've never tried that. So
It probably should work because probably if you're coming from Google, Germany or Sweden, it will probably pass that information to your site.
yeah, I mean this. Yeah, I mean I haven't actually worked on sites that were translated like multi-language sites before, so I don't know about that. But it would be a good thing to check whether Drupal can serve data in a different language, depending on what Google, the language of Google that you're querying. But at least for the date and other location wouldn't change too much. I don't think you would translate that. But yeah, the rest would be relevant, yeah. So this is the time for question now. This is the end of my session. So happy to take questions.
You use description instead of body. I mean, is there a way to? I mean, it seems like you should use body for description, so things like teasers and stuff like that show up correctly.
Yeah, so you could do that. So I deleted the body